Welcome to the Rebuild Procurement Podcast, the number one procurement podcast in the world, where we dive deep into topics to keep procurement people up to date and ahead of their peers. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening or not. Jump into them all. On today's episode, Alan, transitioning from our last episode to this one, today we're going from great to a job. So there's lots of folks out there that are looking for roles, or maybe you're in roles and looking. And today we're going to talk to those folks. I'm Tom Finn, bringing 15 years on the client side, procurement, finance, and category management experience in large and small cap orgs.
And I'm Alan Vika, procurement geek on the sell side of our street, and I've assembled a team of superhuman procurement professionals doing managed services at a company that we call Summit.
All right, Alan. So today we're talking, like we said in the intro there, essentially about job search and just looking for a new role. I think
that's right.
From
last week was good to great. How to like amp up your career. But now let's say that you're ready to take the next step up the career ladder, and you're looking for that next rung, or God forbid you're out of work and you got to go find a job. This is from great to a job.
Yeah. So and I think just the transition point is, if you're at a company right now, you just want to make sure you're connecting, right? So I think the relationship, that thread rolls through life, or goes through life. So just maintaining those connections, just ensuring people know the type of worker you are, the type of preparation you put into things. That's just kind of always the starting point, just if you're at a role right now. But if you're looking, I think there's a few things here that we laid out that we thought would be good to talk through. The first is going to be just the LinkedIn outreach, Alan. So, LinkedIn really is, I think it just essentially handles all the jobs in the world at this point. Sometimes it's a matter of filtering through. So there's different job boards, and some people might be on Indeed, but really LinkedIn has some pretty cool features associated with it. You can see sometimes who the hiring manager is. You can just better understand what's out there and get the notifications. That's always just I think a lot of people have that stuff set up, but with that, once you start finding that role, then what? So first is putting time into your resume. So with all the AI tools now, Alan, it's pretty easy to customize stuff at this point. Or at a minimum, it's easy to get feedback on your resume for how you would fit into a role. So one piece of advice is take your resume, just ChatGPT, standard plan, don't need to pay for anything. Take your resume, you paste it into ChatGPT, and then you take a job description that looks good. And you paste it in there and you say, help me match up my resume to this job description. Or am I a good fit? What am I missing? What do I need to lean into? That's one thing I've seen people do. And I think it just makes it more just suited to the role. You don't want to lie. You don't want to over embellish, but you do want to make sure you speak to the things you've done and speak to the person that could be the hiring manager on the other side.
Yeah. And speak to them in the most positive light possible. So, I think that because we're all humans, most of us forget more of what we've done than we could possibly remember. So really dig deep, really try to find those instances where you check the box on one element of that job description. Sometimes you just got to be a little bit creative about it. Yeah, you certainly do not want to misrepresent, but you also need to remember that you're your best agent. There's nobody else who's going to blow your trumpet, so you got to blow it. You got to make sure you do that. And one of the ways that you can do that and not show false humility, but truly kind of represent things that you've done. I always love your advice on ChatGPT. I think ChatGPT does a first good job, a first good pass. But if you have a trusted friend who can do this for you, have them. If you have a resume guru who can go through the resume and help you tune it up a bit, they'll often, especially if it's a friend who can blow your trumpet for you, they'll say, well, why do you put it this way? Why don't you put it this way instead? I always read people's resumes with an eye towards action verbs. Just open up a web page, pull up the strongest action verbs for resumes. It'll be a list of 500, and use that as your thesaurus so that you don't say all of the same managed this, did that,
Yeah,
right?
led
Instead, you
this.
can, yeah, led this. You could always find better action verbs that convey that you really are driving things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think just to like people might be thinking, I don't have any like resume experts. Just find somebody that leads a team that's had to hire some people because you get used to it pretty quick, right?
Mm,
You start just like
right.
looking at it, and there's like this, or if someone is in HR or something, but you get the feel over time of like, I mean, in all truthfulness, people spend like 5 seconds. They like overview real quick. I guess the first stage is making sure you have keywords in there that their their softwares will pass you through. That's one
Yep.
because those softwares do just boot people out if it doesn't think it's a good fit. And then the secondary piece is making sure that it's legible, that people will find the most important things up front. And there's like a million different formats, and again, like there's a bunch of different gurus and different ideas of it, but those are that's really what you want to get to. You want to get your most important things seen easily.
Yeah, that's completely right. So the all good advice, and everything kind of begins with the resume, because that's the coin of the realm. You're going to have to submit that whether you like it or not. Now let's dig into the more controversial topic, the cover letter.
Yeah, clearly a child of the 80s. I find these valuable, Alan. I don't know if one's ever been read, but I feel like so few were submitted that they may be. So I'm a big like max effort type person on things I want. So I find that like if and I just
Oh,
like even when I
yeah,
receive cover letters, I don't always look at them. I'll scan them though. I still do open them up
sure.
if I receive them. But I just find okay, like everyone else submitting one document, I'm going to submit two. Right? Let me
Yes.
look. Let me just look a little different up front. Right? Just for all these
Uh-huh.
onesies, I'm going to be a twosie guy. So
Yep.
so I always like adding a cover letter. I don't go beyond that really, but I find it helpful in having the two versus the one, so
Yep.
double the uploads versus other people. But I think it also gives a little more context because you can customize it a bit. Like I have a very generic type one that I have certain lines in it that I tweak for one, the job description, and two, the company. So within the job description side, just making sure that I speak exactly, very clearly. I think I even bold this sentence of what they would need and how I fit that. And then on the company is why I'm impressed with the company. So I would go on, I would look, I would see what their values were, and I would call out the values of the company within the cover letter.
That's good. Yeah, so they know that you're paying attention. You've done your homework.
I've already read. I've
I
already done some research.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly right. And that this is where I think ChatGPT can be super helpful,
yeah,
because, knowing this is jumping a little bit to the next stage, the interview, but understanding that company, their values, their mission, who their founders are, what the founders were thinking 15 years ago when they started the business, all of that gives you the right context to go to submit your resume, but also to go into discussions with a prospective employer.
yeah.
The I It's an interesting thing. Made me think when we were talking about cover letters. It made me think about when I was in my venture capital days. Uh, I did something even a little bit different from a cover letter. I put together a one pager called "What I Believe," because I really, after 6 years of venture capital, I realized, gosh, I've learned a ton, and I've got some counterintuitive thoughts about our industry. I've got some things that I think differently from everybody else about, that I think are real insights and real learnings. And I put together what was like a half page "What I Believe." I called it "What I Believe," and that's kind of, in your face, what I believe. And I believe that helped me to get a bunch of interviews. So think about ways, you're your own advertising agent. Think about ways that you can make yourself stand out from the crowd, because you will have your resume sitting next to 10,000 resumes. Just be ready for it.
Yeah, and that's the idea. How do I stand out? Right. That's kind of
Yep.
my going in. Hence, two versus one. The but then let's assume okay, it does take effort to get to an interview, but then it's how do I show up once I'm there?
Mm-hmm.
So there are some preparation methods, Alan. The one that helped me out a lot, and there's like a million YouTube videos on this stuff, but it was this STAR method. So a lot of interviews is essentially storytelling, and like how did I do something.
It's
Yeah,
all
it
storytelling.
is like what is life? It's a story.
Mm-hmm.
But STAR method, it's situation. So what is the situation, the task, that took place, the action that I took, and then the result that happened. So just like
Yep.
walking through that as you go through the background and the things that you've learned or things that you've done on your resume, you should be able to have one of those stars for each of them. What was the situation I was in? What it was a tough time, company was going through bankruptcy, whatever, had to save costs, the task. Therefore, I was brought into place to review all of our costs and figure out where to focus, and then to bid certain stuff out. Result was X% in savings, or
10
action.
million.
Action was the bidding. Then the result was X% of savings. But you just go
Yep.
through that over and over and over again, right? That was on the fly, but you get like through that with what you've done. And anytime the interviewer asks you something, you can lay it out in that format. It's a clearer conversation.
Yeah, I like that approach. I think when I was at McKinsey, we had a very similar approach. It was called situation, complication, resolution. So it helps to go into your storytelling, into your interviews with frameworks. These are just frameworks so that you structure your stories in a way that they're digestible to the person who's listening and you're not scattered. So I think that's the foundational principle here is go in with frameworks. And in the end, what do all these frameworks do? You're telling a story and you're telling the hero's, what do they call it? The hero's journey, right? I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Joseph Campbell. It is the you are playing the part of the hero and you're saying, here's the dragon that I had to go slay. Here's the story of why this was important to do. Here's the princess that I was trying to save. And here's how I succeeded. And that's a story that is ingrained in us as human beings and really resonates with the person who's interviewing you.
Yeah. Two more thoughts on this one, Alan, is there's a cool book. I've never told you about this one. It's on my bookshelf over there. Story Brand. Did we ever talk about Story Brand? Donald Miller. So he essentially takes the hero's journey and he references him all the time. So he gives all credit there, but he takes it for from a marketing perspective of just the whole guide and how your company or you are not necessarily the hero, but you're the guide. The company you're going to work for in this case will be the hero. You're the one that guides it on the journey. You're the Yoda.
Yes.
In for the Star Wars example. So StoryBrand is a pretty awesome book and it lays out the framework. Just one other point, and we can go into like story mode all day. There's a YouTube video a while back. It was I never really watched South Park, but always kind of respected them. They always had to churn out things so quickly.
Yes.
But Trey Parker and Matt Stone, those guys were the two creators of South Park, and they gave this like little speech on story, and they when a kid, they're always like, and then it's like if I listen to my son.
Yes, I've heard this.
It's always and then, and you want to that's just like a continuation. You're like, all right, there's like a never ending loop. But if you add either like a but or therefore, so it kind of like inserts something else, like a logical like I was doing something therefore, and it kind of brings you to the next step versus and then. It's just once you start thinking like that with it, specifically the therefores, like I think it's a very helpful thought process for stories and laying things out.
I think storytelling is everything.
Yeah.
And maybe an important closing point on this all important interview step. I always tell everyone, my kids, my friends, people who reach out for advice. I have a kid in college who has a friend that's graduating a semester early. So this is his best friend. He reached out to me just last week and said, "Hey, Mr. Veek, I'm looking for my first job. What recommendations do you have?" And something I tell everybody is, if you haven't interviewed in a while, you got to just start interviewing, because the first 5 to 10 interviews you take, they're going to suck. They're just going to suck.
Yeah.
It's the first waffle, the first pancake, that kind of analogy.
It's like the pan wasn't heated up
throw
enough.
It out.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's the same thing. You got to do your first interview waffle, because you walk out of the first interview and you say, wow, okay, I wasn't expecting that question. I really fumbled that ball. And then your brain can start reacting to the notion of a story. You can say, okay, if I had to tell that again, how would I tell that story again?
Yeah.
And the second, third, fourth time, you tell the story again, but you miss some details. And so it's bothering you. Your background CPU is working on it for weeks. So by the time you get to your 10th interview, it's like polished. You are the TED talk of your life.
Yeah. And just if you listen to, there's YouTube videos where they'll ask something and then pause. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
when I was working towards a role a while back, it was like I would just have YouTube videos playing as I was going to go pick up my kids, and I would have to answer them in a certain amount of time. And just always envision somebody challenging you in your brain.
Yes.
That's a helpful way just to kind of put yourself under that pressure before it exists. Um,
Mm.
one that's probably just a bit more unused method here, Alan. I always put together a presentation.
Mm.
I last go around, I did multiple ones, and it's always like a similar type role, and it landed me exactly where I wanted to be, so it paid off. But putting together a deck that folks can sift through, and you can send ahead of your. You might not necessarily do it before like the HR interview, but during that HR interview, if you're doing your own job, you should be understanding more about the company, not just telling them about
Mm-hmm.
yourself. So with that, you have the job description, then you have a little bit of context given to you by HR. You should be able to build out
Yep.
a path forward. So if you were to go into the role, what does that look like on the back end? What is that hero's journey of theirs, and where do they land, right? Do they land with like
Yeah.
more clear ability to, after the first 90 days, because this should be the structure, first 30 days I'm gonna do something, 60 days, 90 days, at the end of 90 days, outcome is just golden arches, whatever it is, like people are happy, smiling CFO and CEO and CPO. So that's the kind of idea that you want. You want to just give the outcome to them and show them how you're going to get there, because you have that background to deliver.
I think that's great. Anything that differentiates you from, again, the 10,000 resumes that are going to be there, the 100 interviews that might be taken, dozens of interviews that might be taken, I think is hugely important. And everybody needs to understand that PowerPoint, the presentation format, is the coin of the realm inside all Fortune 500 businesses. This is how executives communicate. So being able to show that is a good thing. You can say, I've got this skill under my belt, number one. Number two, you can also, it just conveys information so much faster to those people who will be interviewing you, because that's
Yeah.
how people digest information these days. It's PowerPoint.
And shows you're a go-getter, right? No one else is doing that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everyone could just chat GPT an updated resume and an updated cover letter. No one's putting together presentations. So
That's
just
right.
separating yourself. So now, Alan, my strategy is 3-1, right? I'm 3-1 versus everybody else, right? How can I
Yes, you
how can I
are.
lose long term if I'm that person doing that?
Resume, cover letter, PowerPoint.
Yeah. And then number 4, which a lot of people do, is that thank you, right? On the back end, like appreciate your
Yep.
time. Probably maybe like 30% of people do that.
Yeah. I think a fast follow-up thank you is good. I'd add one other thing in there that we didn't touch on, which I saw the best practice on this week. There's a mutual friend of ours who's interviewing for roles, and he reached out to me and he said, I'm interviewing at this company. I see that you're connected on LinkedIn to the
Smart. Yep.
person who's my hiring manager. Would you mind putting in a good word for me? So again, I'm always in my mind thinking of, how do I get from the stack of 10,000 resumes to the stack of 100 resumes? That's the one. I want to be in this stack, not this stack.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways to do that is you put calls in. You have people put calls in on your behalf. If you don't know, we talked last week about knowing people, and people hire people. But the next best thing, if you don't know anybody where you're interviewing, is to have somebody else who knows somebody say something good about you.
For sure. Make yourself 5-1.
Yep, 5-1.
Yeah, 5
That's
to 1. There's
that's
the
what we
odds
should
you're
call them.
competing against. Some people
Maybe
do that.
Yeah, maybe that's the that needs to be the title of the episode. 5-1.
Yeah. So, all right. I think those are all we had to talk about here, Alan.
Yeah, and we again, I think we're trying to be timely here. I'm talking to people every week who are out pounding the pavement looking for their next job. It seems like a lot of people are waiting a long time. So hopefully there are some nuggets in here that people can find helpful. And if either Tom and I can be helpful to anybody who's who's going through this process of interviewing, who's looking for a job, please don't hesitate to reach out. We've all been there. And maybe my last piece of advice would be, it's easy to kind of be doom and gloom, especially as the weeks drag into months and drag on. So don't give in to doom and gloom. Keep your chin up. There is light at the end of this tunnel. So good luck to everybody who's out there doing interviews. On behalf of your humble host here at Rebuild Procurement Podcast, we are Tom Finn, the guy who puts the fin in finance, and your OG in procurement, Alan Veek, hoping you will make this a powerful and productive week in procurement. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Show me, and you won't hear the word rebuild.